I started paying attention to heart rate when I got into running for the second time. And the question I was asking myself over and over again was, why is my heart rate so flippin' high when I run? Even when I was warming up, hiking, I think it's incredibly important for everyone to figure out this one question, because heart rate training is where you're going to be spending 70 to 85% of your total training time at a low heart rate, under your zone 3. Listen, you're going to be faster, you're going to be more energetic throughout the day, you're going to be able to have more, you're going to be metabolically fitter, and you'll be able to fuel your runs using your fat as a fuel source. Most runners want to have the endurance to run longer without burning out. Building an aerobic base is the foundation. It's one of the first steps for me, so that way I can compete in races and not burn out before the end of it. Today I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you might have a high heart rate and what you can do about it. Your first reason is you really do have a high heart rate. I have running friends who have been tested and their max heart rate is higher than the old age 220 minus your age rule. They find that age is not really a good factor to find their maximum heart rate. They've also mentioned being tested in a lab on a treadmill. That was the best. Or you could go out and do a field test by running a warm-up 2-kilometer tempo run followed by 400 meters all out, and lastly doing it all over again in a 400-meter effort with a progression every single 100 meters to get their highest heart rate possible. They would use a chest strap and not their watch to find their highest heart rate, and this is the perfect scenario because it is very important to set your training zones correctly. There are runners out there that generally have a high heart rate, and the standard calculators really don't work very well for them. Over the past number of months, I've been using the a.k.a. method, which uses my maximum heart rate and my resting heart rate to dial in your heart rate zones. The a.k.a. method is a popular method for determining heart rate training zones, and it involves using a formula: target heart rate equals maximum heart rate minus resting heart rate times intensity plus resting heart rate. The a.k.a. method is based on the idea that the best way to train is to work at an intensity that is relative to the individual's level by taking into account your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate. The a.k.a. method can help you determine the ideal intensity of your training type and your zones. Look, you have a unique physiology. You will want to customize your zones to reflect so. So go and do a max heart rate test like I mentioned before. Then you'll need to sleep with a watch that has a heart rate monitor on it for a few nights to find your lowest heart rate. Then take your maximum heart rate from the maximum heart rate test, then your lowest possible heart rate overnight while you've been sleeping. Put that in the a.k.a. calculator right here, and it uses a formula to calculate your exact zones. Now here's the thing, you'll have to trust those zones even if it's hard for you to stay under the numbers. Remember, you're building a base first, then you can move on to 80-20 training. Reason number 2, you don't yet have the mitochondrial density, and it's probably most common for new runners or if you haven't been running very much lately. And that's why you don't yet have the mitochondrial density to be able to train at a low heart rate very effectively yet. Let me explain. Mitochondrial density drawn out in 2 circles on the ground here. And looking at it's going to be super simple and super oversimplified, but it helps explain what I'm getting at. I'm saying that this circle right here is your mitochondrial density, and these are the energy producers in the muscle. This is how we translate all the inputs that we have, such as, calories and, air, blood, oxygen, and all of that fun stuff into actual energy called movement. Then we got another plate here that is super high in mitochondrial density, like really high. And these are the energy producers of our muscles. And this is how we actually create movement. Now, which one of these do you think is going to have an easier time creating movement? Obviously, the one that has much higher mitochondrial density. For example, if you want to run a 5-minute per kilometer pace really well, who do you think is going to have an easier time producing the energy to go ahead and race that fast? It's obviously going to be the one that has more energy producers in their muscle as opposed to the person that doesn't have as much mitochondrial density. So how do we build that mitochondria density? Well, if we look at a 5-zone training system, mitochondrial density is well built here in zone 1 to the middle of zone 3. So you've got 1 and 3, but you can get a lot more in zone 3. But the problem is when you start running in zone 3, you are going to have a lot more lactic acid that's building up. So it's going to be harder to do it day after day and still have the energy to do the zone 4 and 5 stuff if you're using 80-20 training. Yeah, you might build up more mitochondrial density, but it's going to hamper all of your intense sessions. So you're also not going to be able to train as long and build up as much as you would really like to. Spend the time in your low intensity zone so that way you can build up the mitochondrial density and then hopefully run 5 minutes per kilometer 5-kilometer race pace with a low heart rate. It works. It takes time to build it up, but it does work. Reason 3. So if you're getting any benefit from these videos, if you enjoy my smiling face, give me a like, comment, share, all those fun things. But let's, more importantly, continue and get out and run. You're not yet metabolically flexible. Look, I find that my improved running over the last 90 days, running every day, is related to the last point. I've had to work hard at being consistent, but when you are starting out running or coming back from time off, you might not have the metabolic flexibility to be able to run at a low heart rate effectively either. Again, let me explain. If you've ever seen one of these in a gym, it's a chart where it shows your training zones. Zone 1, Zone 2. Those are your low intensity zones. Then you've got Zone 3, right? That's the gray zone. And then you got Zone 4 and 5, and those are extremely anaerobic and very fast and very hard to do. Now, if you spend all of your time in Zone 3, that's like that gray zone. You're burning a little bit red, so to speak. But when you're running in the high end, you're burning a lot of carbs. Like 4 and 5, you're burning so much carbs. But then when you're in zone 1 and 2, you're really relying on your own fat, right? So being able to burn fat and carbohydrates puts you in a really good position to be able to push at those higher heart rates, and it's going to be easier to burn those carbohydrates. But if you're anyone like me who's hit the wall because you've run out of all of your electrolytes, you've run out of your carbs, you've run out of everything, switching over to fat burning, boom, it can be hard. It can be really hard. And your heart rate, I find, mine starts to go up when I start having to rely on my fat storage. So yes, it's a lot more super dense, and you essentially have limitless amount on your own body. But is your body good enough at training at that and burning that fat as fuel? So you'll be able to train more at that level. My hands are so cold. Ow. Regardless of the fuel source, the main factor that determines your heart rate during physical activity is the intensity of the activity. As the intensity of your activity increases, your heart rate will also increase in order to deliver more oxygen to your working muscles. This is why your heart rate typically is higher during high intensity exercise than during lower intensity exercises. Overall, while the fuel source your body uses can affect your performance during physical activity, it does not directly impact your heart rate, but I'm going to say test it out for yourself because it did for me. Just saying. Reason number 4, you haven't done enough speed training. Now this actually might sound counterintuitive and people don't think about this a lot, but it's that you might not have done enough tempos, 400 meter repeats, hill work. Yeah, I know, I get it. It's all about building a base by running slow, right? Yes. However, I have found that having a very high top end speed means that my bottom end, my slow easy pace, will gradually kind of get pulled up with their faster sessions. A lot of runners might make a mistake when they get into low heart rate training like I did. They hear that low intensity is the key to aerobic fitness and endurance, so they just go and run slow effort all the time. Look, maybe they're not even training in zone 2. Maybe it's more like zone 3 kind of effort, and that's not enough to make you fast, but it might make you burn out and get injured or even see no change at all in your fitness. You may go backwards. Yes, your base is improving because your mitochondrial density is increasing. However, you need to hit it sometimes really hard. That's why 70 to 85% being low intensity and 30 to 15% being high intensity is so critical. You need both sessions because the high effort levels actually teach the mitochondria how to function, so to speak. So when using heart rate training, don't just focus on low intensity all the time. There needs to be a little bit of speed. Eyeballs. I'm so cold, guys. My eyes are watering. Oh, it's cold in Canada right now. Reason 5 is you're running in the heat and on the hills. It's running in hot, humid conditions. It's also running on the hills. That has your heart rate starting to get really, really fast. Your body is trying to cool itself. It's sending the blood into your vessels. It's trying to get you to regulate your body temperature when it's hot. When you're running on the hills, you're using more energy to go on up and your heart rate will spike. It's just going to be normal. But one thing that I do like about this whole aspect of heart rate training is it's a guide. It is a mechanism that you can use to slow yourself down, to put yourself in a position to be the best you can be without burning out. It's a regulator. It's like a Cadillac converter. It's a governor on a car, something like that. Anyways, it's just one of those mechanisms that I really like because it helps you kind of to dial into the low intensity training zone even when it's hot. And if that means walking, hiking, then so be it. That's just the way it goes, right? It's really hard to hang on to your speed gains, right? It's hard to hold on to the fitness at that level. But the slower end tends to stick around a lot more. And to come back from time off, you will see a lot of benefit by running slow. And it will help you get faster. But just don't stay at that level, guys. You gotta really change it up, right? And you got to watch out for those overuse injuries like I've talked about in the past. And hopefully you guys found it helpful for you in your training. And like I always say, get out and run and watch this video next because I know it's going to help you in your running. Okay, I lost the feeling in my hand. Oh my God, seriously, it's frozen. You can't, oh, it so hurts. I gotta start wearing gloves. It's that time of the year. Okay, gotta figure out, turn this off. Off, okay, off. my finger's so cold it won't turn the camera off. There's so many methods that you can use for heart rate training, but you just never know which is gonna be the right one. The one I've been using over the last number of months has been the Maffetone Method. And I found it very helpful. And this one may help you guys out as well. I'll talk about that next week's video.